Colorado farmer rushed his swollen German shepherd into the animal hospital, thinking she was in normal labor. Doctors prepared for a routine delivery, but minutes later, the entire clinic went into panic. Because when the dog finally gave birth, there was no puppy. What came out was a human newborn. The vet froze, the nurses screamed, and the farmer dropped to his knees, unable to understand what he was seeing. A dog giving birth to a human baby. How is that even possible? What happened inside this small-town hospital that night? Stay with me. This story is something you want to forget. So stay with me till the very end. And if the story pulls you in even once, hit the like button, subscribe, and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Let us begin. Ethan Miller knew the sound of his farm by heart, the distant lowing of cattle, the creak of the old windmill, the whistle of the Colorado wind slipping through dry grass. But that night, all of it blurred into the background behind one sound only. Daisy S. labored breathing. The German shepherd lay on an old quilt in the corner of the mudroom, her sides heaving, her brown eyes glassy with pain. She was 10 years old now, streaks of grey along her muzzle. The dog who had run his fields, chased coyotes from his fences, and slept on his porch like a silent guardian. Tonight, she looked small and helpless. "Easy, girl, easy," Ethan murmured, kneeling beside her. His calloused hand moved over her side. Her belly was swollen, too swollen, round and tight in a way that scared him. He had seen bloat in neighbor dogs before, had heard the horror stories of shepherds collapsing in minutes. Daisy whined, her paw hooking weakly at his sleeve. The clock above the stove said 1:37 a.m. The house was quiet, the kind of deep country quiet that made the stars louder than any traffic. But Ethan S.'s heart was thundering. He grabbed his phone and dialed the only number he trusted at that hour. Westridge Animal Clinic, came a tired but steady voice. "This is Dr. Grace." "Doc, it S. Ethan. It S. Daisy. Something is wrong, she can't breathe right. Her belly is huge, and she S. in pain. I think it S. bad." There was a pause, then a shift in the Dr. S. tone. "All business now. Get her in. Right now. I'll be there in 10. Drive carefully." 15 minutes later, Ethan S.'s old pickup barreled down the empty county road, headlights cutting through the cold darkness. Daisy lay on the trucker's back seat on a blanket, her head in his lap whenever he reached back at a stop sign to check on her, her breath coming in shallow pants. The town of Willow Bend slept around them, the hardware store dark, the diner's neon sign turned off, the mountains standing like shadows against the sky. He pulled up to the clinic, a low brick building at the edge of town. The porch light was on, and Dr. Grace Monroe stood waiting in scrubs under a worn wool coat, her grey-streaked hair tied back, a stethoscope around her neck, keys in her hand. They moved fast. The door swung open, bright fluorescent light spilling over the parking lot. Ethan scooped Daisy up as gently as he could, ignoring the way his back protested, and carried her inside. "Set her on exam 2, Grace said, flipping on another lamp. The clinic smelled of antiseptic, dog shampoo, and faintly of coffee. Ethan laid Daisy on the padded table, his jaw clenched. Grace's hands moved in quick, practiced motions, checking pulse, gums, temperature. Her frown deepened as she pressed along Daisy's distended abdomen. "How long has she been like this?" she asked. "She started acting off this evening. Didn't eat. Then tonight she started panting and pacing. I thought it might pass. Then she just went down." His voice cracked. "She has never been sick like this, Doc." Grace glanced at him, then back at Daisy. "Her heart rate is high, but her gums are still pink. That's something." but she pressed again, more firmly. Daisy winced and let out a muffled yelp. "What is it?" Ethan demanded. "Is it bloat? Is she dying?" Grace hesitated. "Her abdomen is enlarged, yes. But I am feeling movement." Ethan stared at her. "Movement? Like she ate something alive?" He tried to joke, but it came out strained, almost hysterical. Grace's eyes were distant, counting in her head. "No, like fetal movement." The room went very still. Daisy S. panting filled the silence. "That S not possible," Ethan said. "You spayed her. Years ago. You did the surgery yourself." "I remember," Grace replied quietly. "She was 4 then." She pressed again, her face tightening. "But whatever is happening in there, it feels like a late-term pregnancy." Ethan stepped back, as if distance would make it make sense. The exam room walls, lined with jars of cotton balls and leashes on hooks, seemed to close in. "That can't be right," he whispered. Grace moved to the ultrasound machine, wheeled it over, and squirted gel onto Daisy S. belly. "Let us look," she said. "We're not guessing tonight." The screen flickered to life. Grey waves and shadows shifted until Grace S. practiced hand found what she was looking for. Ethan watched, uncomprehending, until she froze the image, her finger tapping the screen. "Those are puppies," she said slowly. "At least 5, maybe 6. Ethan swallowed hard, his throat dry. On the grainy screen, he could see small bodies curled in darkness, tiny spines, skulls, flickers of movement. Life. Impossible life. "How?" Ethan whispered. How could she be pregnant? Grace didn't answer. Her mind raced through possible explanations: botched spay, ovarian remnant syndrome, some bizarre anomaly. But Daisy S. surgery had been textbook. She remembered it. She remembered Ethan S. worry as they joked about no more puppies for this girl. "I don't know yet," she admitted. "But she S. full term, and she S. in distress. We don't have time to figure out the how right now. We just have to get them out and keep her alive." Ethan swallowed, staring at Daisy. She looked up at him, her brown eyes dull but trusting. She had been with him through droughts and blizzards, through the year his father died, through nights when he'd sat on the back steps with a beer and his grief. She had chased off a mountain lion once, earning a scar along her flank. She had slept outside his bedroom door when his marriage fell apart. "Do whatever you have to," he said hoarsely. "I don't care what it costs." Grace nodded. "I'll need you to sign a consent form. And then you need to wait in the lobby. I am not leaving her. You want to be far, but I need room to work." The wall clock ticked louder as he signed the papers with shaking hands. Daisy was wheeled behind swinging doors toward the operating room, her nails clicking on the metal table. Just before the doors closed, her eyes found his one last time, and Ethan lifted his hand as if he were sending her into battle. In the empty waiting room, under the hum of old fluorescent lights, Ethan sat with his elbows on his knees, hands clasped so tightly his knuckles turned white. On the wall was a corkboard of photos, smiling kids with puppies, cats in Santa hats, a Polaroid of Daisy herself as a young dog, tongue lolling, standing beside a flooded field. The quiet of the clinic felt unreal, as if the whole town had been put on pause. Outside, the mountains were black silhouettes beneath a sky full of cold, indifferent stars. Inside, in a lit room he couldn't see, something impossible was happening inside the body of the dog he loved most in the world. He didn't know yet that the night would not only change Daisy's life, but his, and the entire town's, forever. The ticking clock above the receptionist's desk seemed to grow louder with every second. Ethan stood up, paced, sat back down, then stood again. Through the thin wall he could hear faint sounds, metal trays, muffled voices, the low murmur of Dr. Grace giving instructions. At one point, Daisy S. sharp, pained yelp cut through, and Ethan S. whole body flinched. "Come on, girl," he whispered to the empty room. "You've fought off coyotes. You can handle this." He walked to the window and looked out at the empty parking lot. Willow Bend slept on. The diner sign across the street was off, but a lone truck sat in the lot, frosting over. Somewhere a train horn called faintly, carried on the wind. The door opened and he spun around. It wasn't Grace. It was Sheriff Bill Harper, shrugging off his brown jacket and rubbing a hand over his tired face. He was in his 50s, with a thick mustache and the kind of weary kindness that came from 3 decades of small-town law enforcement. "Got a call from Grace," he said. "Said I should stop by." Ethan frowned. "Is Daisy that bad? Why would she call you?" Harper leaned on the counter. "She didn't say much, just that something strange was going on, and I might want to be here when she finished surgery." He gave Ethan a measured look. "You know, Grace, she doesn't spook easy." Ethan felt his stomach twist. "She said Daisy was pregnant," he muttered. "But you know that can be—" "I know Daisy was spayed," Harper finished. "My son helped you build that kennel back then, remember? Everyone knows that dogs never had a litter." They fell into uneasy silence. The sounds behind the closed door continued. The hum of machines, the click of instruments, quiet orders. Minutes stretched into nearly an hour. Finally, the door swung open. Grace stepped out, her scrub-stained, surgical cap in one hand, lines etched deep into her face. For a second, Ethan couldn't read her expression, and his heart lunged into his throat. "She is alive," Grace said first. "Daisy is a fighter, but she lost a lot of blood. She is stable for now, but she'll need close monitoring." Ethan exhaled, his legs nearly giving out. Thank God. "And the puppies?" Grace's eyes flickered to the sheriff before returning to Ethan. "You should both come with me," she said quietly. "You need to see this with your own eyes." The short walk down the hall felt unbearably long. The operating room door was propped open. Inside, the harsh surgical light still blazed, reflecting off shiny metal and white tile. Daisy lay on her side on the table, shaved belly stitched neatly, IV hooked into her front leg. Her chest rose and fell slowly. Her tongue lolled slightly, but her eyes were closed, resting. Near her was a warming box lined with towels and heating pads. Ethan expected to see a pile of squirming puppies, and there were some 5 small German Shepherd pups, slick fur still drying, mewling and nudging blindly against each other. But what froze him was the 6th form. In a separate bassinet, under a different heat lamp, lay something else entirely, a tiny human baby. The world tilted. The air in Ethan S. lungs evaporated. For a long, impossible moment, he could only stare. The baby was small, no bigger than an average newborn, wrapped in a soft towel. Its skin was pink, its chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. A thin tuft of dark hair lay damp against its head. Its hands were curled into fists, the fingernails barely visible crescents. Its eyes were closed, lashes dark against its cheeks. "That's not funny," Ethan whispered hoarsely. What is this? Some kind of joke?" Grace's voice was steady, almost too calm. "I performed a C-section after Daisy S. labor stalled. There were 5 fully developed puppies, and then this, in her uterus, surrounded by fluid, connected by tissue that should not have been able to exist. But it was there, and it was alive." Sheriff Harper swore under his breath, taking off his hat as if he were standing in church. He stepped closer, eyes narrowed. "You're telling me that dog gave birth to a human child?" "I am telling you," Grace replied, that this human infant was inside Daisy's uterus when I opened her up. I don't know how yet, but this, she gestured at the baby, is not a trick. He's breathing. His APGAR score was low, but he responded to stimulation. He's here. Ethan shook his head, backing up until his shoulder hit the wall. The tile was cold through his jacket. That S, impossible. That S, not. That doesn't happen. I know, Grace said quietly, which is why I called Bill. Whatever this is, it's not a medical anomaly. It's a crime scene. The word crime snapped something into focus. Ethan's mind raced through the last few weeks. The strange sounds he'd heard near the barn a couple nights ago and dismissed as raccoons. The way Daisy had been restless lately, pacing the fence line, barking toward the road as if smelling something that didn't belong. Ethan's gaze fell on Daisy. She looked peaceful, but her paws twitched slightly, as if she were running in a dream. The idea that someone had done something to her used her made rage burn hot in his chest. Sheriff Harper stepped closer to the baby, careful not to touch anything. Grace, how secure is your clinic? Locked at night. Only I have keys, and my tech, Jenna. But she's out of town this weekend, Grace said. Still, it's not Fort Knox. A determined person could break in. Or I guess they could access the dog some other way before tonight. Do you know how far along this child is? The sheriff asked. Premature, but not extremely, Grace replied. Maybe 35, 36 weeks. A bit underweight, but vital signs are holding. We got oxygen ready if his breathing dips. His, Ethan repeated numbly. I checked, she said gently. It's a baby boy. The sheriff's mind had already gone into investigator mode. We've had any pregnant women vanish, any miscarriages reported, strange rumors, anything. Ethan's thoughts flickered to the town's gossip mill, to the diner booths where stories traveled faster than coffee refills. Recently, there had been talk about Travis Hargrove, the local land developer who'd been buying up properties on the outskirts, pushing hard to get Ethan's own land, the Miller place, for some luxury ranch project. People said his wife, Bella, had been unwell, hiding at home. Some said she was pregnant. Others said she had lost a baby. No one seemed to know the full truth. I heard about Bella Hargrove, Ethan said slowly. People said she was pregnant. Then suddenly they said she wasn't. Travis told the guys at Murphy's bar it had been a false alarm or something. But she hasn't been seen in town for weeks. Sheriff Harper's eyes narrowed. Travis Hargrove, he repeated. That man would sell his own mother if he could get an easement out of it. Grace picked up a clipboard, her hand steady despite the tension in her jaw. Bill, this child needs proper neonatal care. The nearest hospital in Glenridge has a NICU. I can stabilize him here, but he'll need to be transferred soon. And I need to keep Daisy under close observation. I'll call it in, Harper said, but first I need pictures, documentation. We're retreating this room and that dog as evidence until proven otherwise. Ethan stared at Daisy and the baby, the two lives tied together by something he could not understand. A loyal old dog and a newborn boy, both dragged into a nightmare by someone else, as cruelty. Doc, he said softly, Can I get close to him? Just for a second. Grace hesitated, then nodded. Don't touch him yet. Just look. Ethan stepped to the side of the bassinet, staring down. The baby's tiny chest rose and fell, a fragile rhythm. One of his hands uncurled, fingers stretching, reaching out toward nothing. Without meaning to, Ethan felt his own hand mirror the motion, hovering above but not touching. The baby's eyelids fluttered. For a heartbeat, one dark eye cracked open, unfocused, unfathomably new. Ethan felt something shift inside his chest, an ache, an instinct, a thread pulling tight. "Who did this to you, kid?" he whispered. "Who left you and my dog like you were a secret to bury?" There was no answer, only the soft hum of machines and the distant howl of the wind against the clinic windows. But the sheriff's jaw tightened, and Grace's eyes glinted with a fire that came from long years of protecting the voiceless. Whoever had done this hadn't just broken the law. They had waged war on innocence itself. Morning crept up on Willow Bend in pale streaks of grey and pink, but inside the clinic, time felt frozen under fluorescent lights. The baby lay in a portable crib, now hooked up to a small monitor Grace had dug out of storage. His breathing had evened out, his color had improved. Every now and then he let out a weak cry, a sound so fragile it made Ethan's throat ache. Daisy slept under a warm blanket with an IV drip, her chest rising in slow, steady waves. The 5 puppies nestled against padded bottles instead of their mother, squeaking softly. Ethan moved between them like a man caught in someone else's dream. Sheriff Harper had been busy. He took photographs of everything: the incision, the newborn, the pups, the room layout. He bagged Daisy's bloodied surgical drapes. He called the state police in Glenridge and requested a detective and a forensic specialist. But small-town protocol meant they'd take a while. Glenridge didn't move fast unless someone's bar was on fire or the mayor called in a favor. In the meantime, Harper's mind zeroed in on what little they knew. A baby this far along doesn't just appear without someone missing him, he muttered, sipping cold coffee from a paper cup, or trying real hard to make sure no one knows he exists. He called the county dispatcher, asking for any recent reports of stillbirths, miscarriages, or suspicious hospital visits. There were none. The Hargroves had used private doctors as far as anyone knew. As the sun finally pushed over the horizon, washing the clinic windows in gold, Ethan found himself standing alone with Daisy. Her eyelids fluttered. Slowly, she opened her eyes. "Hey girl," he whispered, relief flooding him. He moved closer, careful of the IV line, and stroked her head. "You scared the hell out of me." Daisy's gaze drifted around the room until it landed on the crib where the baby lay. Her ears twitched. She whined, a low, questioning sound, and tried to lift her head. The effort made her tremble. Grace stepped in quickly. "Easy," she murmured, placing a hand on Daisy's shoulder. "You're not going anywhere just yet." Daisy ignored her, those dark, intelligent eyes locked on the baby. Ethan followed her gaze, a shiver running up his spine. "You think she knows?" he asked softly. "That he was inside her?" "I don't know what she knows," Grace replied, "but she is a German shepherd. They were protectors. Whatever happened to her, her instinct will be to guard what she believes is hers." Outside, tires crunched over gravel. Harper peeked through the blinds. "Well, that didn't take long," he muttered. "The vultures are already sniffing around." A black SUV pulled into the lot, sleek, shiny, painfully out of place next to Ethan's dented pickup. The driver's door opened, and Travis Hargrove stepped out, sunglasses on, even though the sun was barely up. His dark hair was combed back, his jacket expensive, his boots spotless. Beside him, moving more slowly, was Bella. Ethan hardly recognized her. Bella Hargrove had once been the polished face of Hargrove Development, always smiling in real estate ads. Her blonde hair and bright dresses a contrast to Travis. See sharper edge. Now she looked shrunken, pale, her hair twisted into a messy knot, oversized coat wrapped tightly around her like armor. She moved carefully, one hand unconsciously hovering at her midsection, though her belly was flat. Harper straightened his uniform. "Showtime," he said grimly. "Nobody says a damn word about the baby until I say so. Let's see what they volunteer." He opened the door just as Travis reached for it, forcing the developer into an awkward half-step. "Sheriff," Travis said with an easy smile, pulling his sunglasses down. "Heard there was some kind of incident here last night. Big commotion for a little animal clinic." Grace's eyes narrowed. "Our phones aren't exactly ringing off the hook. Who told you anything happened?" Travis shrugged, flashing a charming grin that never reached his eyes. "Small town, people talk. One of my guys passed by on his way to Glenridge and saw Harper's cruiser out front at 3 a.m. Not exactly a routine check-in. Thought maybe I should swing by, make sure everything's okay. Bella hasn't been feeling well, and this is the only clinic in town after all." Bella's gaze slid toward the hall, where the faint sound of a baby's whimper could be heard. Her lips parted slightly, her face went even paler. She quickly looked away, lowering her head. Ethan watched her closely. Her fingers dug into her coat sleeve. "What's going on, Sheriff?" Travis asked, his tone light but his jaw tight. "Some kind of rabid dog? Loose livestock? I'd hate for anything to disrupt the progress we were making on our development plans." Harper stepped into his space, not intimidated by the tailored jacket. "Funny you should mention dogs," he said slowly. "We had a pretty unusual case last night. Farmer's dog in distress. Emergency surgery. We were still sorting it out." Travis cocked his head, faux concern creasing his brow. "That's so. Hope the mutt's okay. Though between you and me, some of these farmers treat their animals better than their own financial future." Ethan bristled. "Some of these farmers aren't interested in selling their land to build luxury cabins no one in this town can afford," he snapped. Travis turned, smile sharpening. "Ah, Ethan. Didn't see you there. Still clinging to that rocky patch of dirt, huh? I keep telling you everything in life is timing. Sell now, you walk away comfortable. Hold on too long, and well, life has a way of making decisions for you." Bella flinched almost imperceptibly at his words. From down the hall, the baby cried again, louder this time. The sound sliced through the room like a knife. Bella's hand flew to her mouth. Tears pooled instantly in her eyes. Her knees buckled and she caught herself on the back of a chair. "Oh God," she whispered. Travis shot her a warning look, his smile vanishing. "Bella, you're exhausted. Maybe we should." Harper's gaze sharpened. "Funny thing," he said conversationally, as if discussing the weather. "We got a call from Dr. Singh in Glenridge last month. Asked us to check on a patient who skipped her last few prenatal appointments. Lady named Bella Hargrove. Said she'd been in her 3rd trimester. Then suddenly, no more visits, no hospital record of a birth, no report of a miscarriage." Travis stiffened. "Our medical history is private." "Normally, yes," Harper replied. "But since I am currently standing in a clinic with evidence of a serious crime, privacy starts to look a lot more like obstruction." Travis's eyes flashed. "What crime?" "You haven't even said what happened." Harper held his stare for a long beat. Then he stepped aside, gesturing toward the hallway. "Come on then," he said. "Since you were so concerned about town affairs, you might as well see for yourself." Grace shot Ethan a glance that said everything. Stay close, stay ready. They walked down the hall in a tight, tense line. The closer they got, the louder the baby's cries became thin, plaintive, insistent. Bella's shoulders shook. Her breathing came in shallow bursts. When they stepped into the recovery room, Bella froze completely. The baby lay in his crib, tiny chest heaving as he wailed. Daisy, though drowsy, turned her head and let out a soft whine. Ears perked. The 5 puppies squirmed in their warming box. Travis stopped in the doorway, color draining from his face. What is that? He managed, even though the answer was obvious. A human baby, Grace said evenly, found inside a dog's uterus during emergency surgery. Travis barked out a laugh that sounded more like a choke. That's insane. That's not even biologically, I know, Grace cut in sharply, which means someone put him there. Bella staggered forward, her hand reaching out as if drawn by a magnet. She stopped beside the crib, fingers hovering over the baby's tiny fist. He quieted instantly. His cries shifted to soft hiccups. His unfocused eyes fluttered in her direction, like he recognized something in her scent, her presence. Bella broke. A sob tore from her chest, raw and animal. She sank to her knees, clutching the side of the crib, her shoulders shaking. Oh God, she whispered. It sent him. It sent my baby. Travis, what did you do? The room went deathly quiet. Sheriff Harper stepped forward slowly. Bella Hargrove, he said gently, I need you to listen very carefully. Right now you have a chance to tell the truth. Before the state police get here, before lawyers get involved, tell me what happened to your child. Travis moved as if to grab her arm. Bella, don't say a word. They were trying to manipulate you. This is some sick setup. Ethan S. always hated me. Grace has never liked me. Harper S. been trying to make my life hell for years. Daisy suddenly let out a deep, rumbling growl. Her fur bristled along her neck. She tried to stand, legs trembling, nails scrabbling against the metal table. A low, dangerous sound vibrated from her chest, directed straight at Travis. For a moment, everyone froze. Daisy's eyes were locked onto him with a focus Ethan had only ever seen when she confronted predators on the farm. Easy, girl, Ethan whispered, but he didn't try to stop her. Something in him understood. Daisy knew. Somehow, she knew. Travis stepped back, caught off guard by the dog, a sudden fury. Bella looked up at Daisy, then at the baby, then at the sheriff. Her face crumpled, guilt and horror warring behind her eyes. It was supposed to be over, she whispered. He told me the baby died. He said there were complications, that the doctor couldn't save him, that he was born too early. He brought me a little box and told me not to open it, that it was better that way. She covered her mouth, sobbing. But I knew. A mother knows. I felt him. I knew my baby was alive. Harper's voice was low but firm. What did he do, Bella? She squeezed her eyes shut. He said the baby would ruin everything, she choked out. The investors, the land deals, the timeline. He said if I kept the baby, he'd lose millions and the whole town would turn on us. He told me I was selfish for wanting him. She pointed a shaking finger at Travis. He told me he'd dispose of the problem. I thought he meant adoption, a safe house, something cruel but human. I never imagined, Her eyes fell on Daisy, on the dog who now stood wobbly but defiant, still growling softly at the man who had violated her body. What did you do to them, Travis? She screamed. What did you do? Travis's mask finally cracked. All I did, he snarled, was clean up a mess. You were careless. You didn't take your pills. You knew what this pregnancy meant for our plans. For years I have worked to get these farmers to sell. Ethan was the last holdout, the linchpin. The investors were ready to pull out. Do you understand what that would have cost us? Harper's hand dropped to his holster. Keep talking, he said. You're doing my job for me. Travis sneered. You think a town this small isn't going to talk when a baby shows up out of nowhere, he snapped. We needed a story so absurd, so grotesque, that no one would take it seriously. A dog gave birth to a human baby. Come on. It sounds like a bad tabloid headline. People would laugh it off. At worst, they'd blame some weirdo cult or a crazy rumor. Meanwhile, Ethan becomes the lunatic farmer with the devil dog. He'd have to sell just to get away from the attention. Ethan felt like the floor had opened up beneath him. You used my dog, he said, voice shaking. You broke into my property, did God knows what to her. All to what? Make me look crazy so I'd sign a damn contract. Travis' eyes flashed with cold contempt. Land is power, Miller. You of all people should know that. You've been sitting on a gold mine and acting like it's just dirt. Grace's voice cut through, sharp as a scalpel. How did you get the baby inside her? Travis' jaw clenched. I know people, he said. A vet from out of state who doesn't ask questions. He owed me favors. We sedated the dog, did the procedure, left her there. It wasn't supposed to go this far. The baby was practically dead. I thought he trailed off, breathing hard. It doesn't matter. You can to prove half of it. You'd be surprised, Harper replied calmly. Between the incision patterns, the tissues Grace removed, the baby's DNA, and Bella's testimony, I'd say you're in a hell of a lot more trouble than you realize. Daisy stumbled forward off the table, IV line tugging, legs shaking. Ethan moved to catch her, but she pushed past him, eyes locked on Travis. She planted herself between the crib and the man who had tried to turn them into collateral damage. Her stance was unsteady but unmistakable, protective, defiant, unyielding. She bared her teeth. For the first time that morning, Travis Hargrove looked genuinely afraid. Get that animal away from me, he demanded, voice high. I'll sue all of you. I only didn't finish. Sheriff Harper stepped forward, cuffs in hand. Travis Hargrove, he said, voice echoing in the small room. You're under arrest for aggravated animal cruelty, attempted infanticide, conspiracy, and about a dozen other charges we'll iron out later. He spun Travis around and snapped the cuffs on his wrists. Outside, the quiet little town of Willow Bend was just waking up, unaware that everything was about to change. Word spread through Willow Bend faster than any official press release ever could. By noon, everyone at Murphy's Diner, the hardware store, and the church steps knew some version of the story. Ethan's dog had given birth to a baby. The sheriff had arrested Travis Hargrove at the animal clinic, and Dr. Grace was keeping both baby and dog alive with the stubbornness only a small-town vet could possess. Most people thought it was exaggerated gossip. Some laughed nervously. Others crossed themselves. A few drove by the clinic and slowed down, staring at the drawn blinds as if they could see the truth through painted cinder block. Inside, the air was heavy with disinfectant, coffee, and the soft, steady sounds of life. The baby had been stabilized and transferred to Glenridge General S. NICU in a small ambulance, but only after a flurry of phone calls and a heated discussion over jurisdiction. A nurse had carefully placed him in a transport incubator, hooking his tiny body up to monitors, threading an IV into a vein so delicate it seemed impossible. Ethan had walked beside the rolling incubator all the way to the ambulance bay, his hand resting gently on the plastic. "What is his name?" the NICU nurse asked kindly, trying to fill the silence. Ethan opened his mouth, then closed it. The baby had a mother. A name should come from her. "We don't know yet," he said quietly, "but he's important." The ambulance doors closed with a soft thud, and the siren wailed as it pulled away, heading toward the mountains and the bigger town beyond them. Back inside, Daisy lay on a folded blanket in a recovery kennel, the glass door left open so Ethan could sit right beside her. The puppies were in a box at his feet, squeaking and wiggling blindly. Every time one of them let out a particularly loud squeal, Daisy's ears twitched. "You did good, girl," Ethan murmured, running his fingers along her neck. "You saved him. You saved all of them." Her eyes were half closed, but she managed to nuzzle his hand. Sheriff Harper stood in the doorway, hat in his hands. "The state boys are taking Travis into custody," he said. "He is already trying to spin a story about grief and temporary insanity. His lawyer S on the way from Denver." "Let him talk," Grace said from the counter, where she was scribbling notes. "The more he says, the more he buries himself." "What about Bella?" Ethan asked. "She is at Glenridge General too," Harper answered. "Voluntarily admitted to the psych wing for observation. She gave a full statement. She's the reason we'll have a clear line from her pregnancy to that baby boy. She is broken, but she is trying to make it right." Ethan stared at Daisy. "Does she want him back?" he asked softly. "The baby?" Harper sighed. "She says she is not strong enough. Not now. Maybe not ever. Says every time she looks at him, all she can see is what Travis did and what she didn't stop." Grace's voice softened. "Trauma doesn't always make sense from the outside. She needs help, time. Maybe someday she'll be ready for a relationship with him. Maybe I will just watch from afar. Either way, the system will look for a safe place for him." Ethan's chest tightened. He knew how the system worked, at least from the outside, rotating foster homes, paperwork, strangers making decisions in beige offices. "I want to apply," he said suddenly, "to foster him, or adopt him if they'll let me." Both Harper and Grace turned to him. "You sure about that?" the sheriff asked. "Raising a child is a hell of a lot different than raising cattle, Ethan." Ethan gave a crooked, almost sheepish smile. "Daisy's been my only family for a long time. I always thought I'd have kids one day. Then the marriage ended, the years slipped by, and it just never happened." He swallowed, looking down at the puppies. One had crawled onto his boot and fallen asleep. "But that little boy," he went on, voice roughening. "Someone stuck him in my dog and left him to die. Daisy carried him when no one else wanted to. She fought through hell to bring him into this world. Feels like I don't know, like he was dropped into my life for a reason." Grace watched him closely. "You understand it want to be easy. Every time people hear a story, they'll have opinions. Some kind, some cruel. He'll have questions when he is older, hard questions. About where he came from. About why someone did this to him." "I'll answer them," Ethan said. "Honestly, carefully. I'll tell him the worst thing that ever happened to him was also the moment a whole town decided to fight for him." Harper's eyes softened. "And what will you tell him about Daisy?" Ethan looked at his dog, her eyes now fully open, watching him. "I'll tell him a German shepherd saved his life," he replied. "That when everyone else saw him as a problem, she treated him like something worth protecting. I'll tell him she was his first guardian angel." Grace smiled faintly, then straightened. "I'll call the caseworker I know in Glenridge. She's tough but fair. If there's a path for you to adopt him, she'll find it." Days passed. The story made the local paper, then regional news, then bigger outlets. They all got the details wrong. Some said Daisy had miraculously conceived a human baby. Others hinted at supernatural explanations. Conspiracy blogs exploded with wild theories. Scientists argued. Comment sections burned. But in Willow Bend, life went on. Fields still needed watering. Fences still needed mending. Calves were still born in frosty dawns, and in the middle of it all, on a ranch at the edge of town, a farmer and his dog slowly healed. Daisy regained her strength, bit by bit. Her incision closed, her fur grew back in a rough patch along her belly. The puppies grew fast, tumbling over each other in the yard, nipping at Daisy's ears while she pretended to be annoyed. Ethan kept one of them, a female he named Hope, and found good homes for the other 4 among friends and neighbors. Every afternoon, when the work was done, Ethan drove into Glenridge. He would scrub his boots clean first, trade his worn ball cap for a slightly less battered one, and walk into the NICU with a mixture of awe and terror, as if he were stepping into a cathedral. The baby known on paper as baby boy Hargrove had gained weight quickly once he was stabilized. He no longer needed a ventilator or feeding tube. He could latch onto a bottle and grip Ethan's finger with surprising strength. One day, about 3 weeks after that impossible night, a social worker named Maria Alvarez met him in a small room off the NICU. Files were spread out on the table, papers in neat stacks. "You've been here every day," she said, watching him carefully. "You've brought diapers, clothes, handmade blankets. You call to check on him every morning and every night. The nurses say you've changed more of his diapers than most new dads." Ethan shifted in his chair, suddenly shy. "I just want to be around," he said. "Help where I can." Maria opened a folder. "Bella Hargrove has signed relinquishment papers," she said gently. She requested that, if possible, the child be placed somewhere far away from her husband's influence, somewhere safe. She specifically mentioned your name. Ethan blinked. "Mine," she said, and I quote, "the farmer with the dog, the one who looks at him like he is already his." Emotion thickened his throat. "We've done our background checks," Maria continued. "No criminal record, stable income, owned property, community ties. Trauma history for the child is complex, obviously, but you're already connected to him in a way no one else is. If you're still willing, we'd like to start the foster to adopt process." Ethan didn't even try to wipe the tears from his eyes. "I am willing," he said, "more than willing." Maria smiled, then let us talk about names. The first time Ethan carried the baby out of the hospital in a car seat, the air smelled like sun-warmed asphalt and pine. The mountains rose in the distance, blue and steady. The baby squinted at the light, face scrunching, then relaxed when Ethan spoke. "Welcome to Willow Bend, kid," Ethan said softly. "Your first home wasn't much, but this one is gonna be better." At the farm, Daisy was waiting on the porch, tail thumping slowly. Hope trotted at her side, ears too big for her head. Ethan set the car seat down carefully and unbuckled the straps. He lifted the baby into his arms and lowered him so Daisy could sniff him. She leaned in, nose twitching, inhaling his scent. Her body went still. Then she let out a long, low sigh and licked the baby's tiny hand with a tenderness that surprised even Ethan. The baby's fingers flexed, then curled gently into her fur. "Yeah," Ethan murmured. "You remember him, don't you, girl? You carried him when no one else would." He looked down at the bundle in his arms. "I've been thinking about your name," he said quietly. "I thought maybe we'd call you Caleb. It means faithful. Seems right, seeing as you and Daisy are tied together that way." The baby yawned, utterly unimpressed by the weight of his new name. Daisy sat beside them, watching, her head tilted. Over the months that followed, life settled into a new rhythm. Ethan learned to function on less sleep, to bounce a crying baby at 3 a.m., while the old farmhouse creaked around them. Daisy lay at the foot of Caleb's crib every night, eyes on the door. When Caleb woke, she'd trot to Ethan's room and nudge his arm until he got up. As Caleb grew, he learned to crawl not just across the living room floor, but across Daisy's back, grabbing handfuls of fur. Daisy endured it with saintly patience, occasionally lifting her head to lick his ear and make him squeal with laughter. Some nights, when the wind howled over the fields and the house felt very small against the sky, Ethan would stand at the window with Caleb in his arms, Daisy leaning against his leg. He'd watch the outline of the barn, the dark shape of the old well, the fence lines stretching into the distance. "We okay," he'd whisper, more to himself than to them. "We made it through." In town, people adjusted. The wilder rumors died down, replaced by quieter conversations. When Ethan brought Caleb into Murphy's diner, folks would nod and smile, some with curiosity, some with genuine warmth. Kids would peek over booth backs to see the baby who had come from a dog. Their parents would hush them, but later, at home, tell them the story stripped of its sharpest edges, turned into a tale about bravery and second chances. Years later, when Caleb was old enough to understand the difference between fairy tales and real history, Ethan sat him down on the porch swing with Daisy, older but still vigilant, sprawled at their feet. "There's something you need to know," he said, heart pounding harder than it had on any trail ride or stormy night. He told Caleb the truth. He didn't spare the ugliness, but he didn't dwell on it either. He spoke of a greedy man who thought money mattered more than people, of a frightened woman who made terrible choices and then tried to make them right, of a little town that chose to protect, not condemn. And he told him, in detail, about Daisy, about how she had carried him when he had no one, how she had stood between him and the man who wanted him gone, how she had spent the rest of her life watching over him. Caleb listened quietly, eyes shining. When Ethan finished, the boy was silent for a long time, one hand resting on Daisy's graying head. "So I'm weird?" Caleb asked at last, a small wry smile tugging at his lips, like scientifically impossible. Ethan laughed, tears spilling anyway. "You," he said, "are a miracle made out of a nightmare. You're proof that people's worst choices don't get to define you, only what you do with the life you've got." Caleb looked down at Daisy. "And I got to start my life with the best dog in the world," he said softly. Daisy lifted her head and looked at him as if she understood every word. Caleb leaned down and wrapped his arms around her neck, burying his face in her fur. That night, as the sun sank behind the Colorado mountains and the sky turned gold and purple, Ethan watched his son and his dog in the yard, one throwing a stick, the other chasing it with a joyful bark. Hope, now an adult dog herself, raced alongside them. The past would always be there, a shadow behind them. A clinic lit up at 3 a.m., a surgical table, a bassinet with a crying child, a man in handcuffs, a woman in tears, but the present was here too. A farmhouse full of laughter, a dog whose eyes were soft and wise, a boy who had once been discarded like a problem and now ran across the grass like he belonged to every inch of it. Ethan's hand rested on the porch rail, fingers tapping absently in rhythm with the sounds of his small, stubborn world. Daisy, sensing his eyes on her, glanced back at him for a moment. Thank you, he thought, not for the first time, for carrying him, for fighting for him, for showing me how to love him. Out in the yard, Caleb threw the stick again, and Daisy sprinted after it, her old legs still strong enough to carry her forward, just as they always had, toward the life she had helped bring into the world, and the boy who would carry her story long after she was gone. And that is how a simple night in a small Colorado town turned into a story the world still can't explain. A loyal German shepherd fought for a child who wasn't hers. A farmer found a son he never expected, and a newborn survived a fate no one on earth deserved. Sometimes the darkest actions of cruel people reveal the brightest hearts in others. And sometimes a dog, just a dog, becomes the line between life and death. If this story touched you even for a moment, hit the like button, subscribe, and share it with someone who believes in kindness, because Daisy proved something powerful that night, that love, loyalty, and protection can come from the most unexpected place. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story. Stay safe, stay kind.